Only 17-year-old boy Paul Bäumer. He joins the German army with excitement. He is sent to the front line, which means he is going to fight in the war. His closest friends are with him, Albert, Franz, and Ludwig. They are all very happy and proud that they are going to fight for their homeland. Until now, Paul has been an ordinary boy, but he believes he will return home from the battlefield as a man and a hero. This is what every boy imagines. However, they are sent to a place called No Man's Land. It is not a place for the living but for the dead. When Paul and his friends arrive, they realize it is not a place to gain glory but a hell. Thousands of people are dying every day. Nearly 40,000 soldiers die every week, most of them not even 20 years old. When our little Paul happily receives his uniform, he sees someone else's name written on it. Paul thinks that maybe they mistakenly gave him someone else's uniform. However, the officer tears off the tag and throws it away. Of course, the uniform belonged to someone else who had died. The battlefield is littered with corpses. Every dead soldier's uniforms are cleaned, mended, ironed, and then given to new soldiers. We'll watch the entire story of the film from Paul's perspective, how he observes the war, what he thinks, and how he perceives everything. Now, you might be wondering, why is this war happening? The answer is, why wouldn't it? It was the time of the First World War, in 1917. Germany occupied much of northern France, and of course, Paul is now a German soldier, and the German soldiers called the French fat pigs. All the friends gather together, joking and having fun. They think about what they will do after returning from the war and come up with various ways to impress girls. Naturally, a returning soldier receives a lot of respect, and they are here to earn that respect. They must maintain a lot of discipline. Their guns must always be neat and clean. They have to keep them spotless at all times. Even their commander tells them that the gun is like their girlfriend. However, suddenly their vehicle was stopped at a place because there are so many wounded people and so many bodies everywhere that there aren't enough vehicles to transport them. Therefore, Paul and the other soldiers have to cover some distance on foot. They arrive at a place called La Malmaison, located in northern France, which the Germans have occupied and where fighting is ongoing. Artillery shells are falling all around, and they are taught how to use gas masks, which were widely used in the First World War, though later banned. Despite this, gas attacks were common at that time. Due to some blunders by Paul, their commander punishes him by making him wear the gas mask. He is considered a loser, unlikely to survive more than a day on the battlefield. However, Paul meets another person there, a senior soldier named Kaczynski. Throughout the story, I refer to him as Kat. He advises Paul on how to stay strong in this place, in this battlefield. When Paul's friends see the place, they realize it's not that place what they imagined. Cleaning the trenches exhausts them, and the cold water numbs their hands. Because of this, Kat gives them a piece of advice: keep your hands inside your underwear. Surprisingly, that advice works. For those who don't know, this is called basic trench warfare. Trench warfare means digging a hole in the ground like a canal and sitting there. Day after day, month after month, they hide in these trenches. Both sides are doing the same, each watching to ensure the other side doesn't advance even a meter. At night, Paul and his friends were sitting in the trench on guard duty. Paul was very excited because he would kill a Frenchman for the first time in his life. But at that moment, a bullet suddenly hit his helmet. The helmet flew off, but fortunately, it didn't hit his head. Kat came and gave him more advice. With his extensive experience, Kat explained Paul's mistake. Paul had shot at a dead body, and the flash from his gun's muzzle was visible from a distance. The enemy had used that flash to aim their shot. Kat told Paul that he must always change his position after firing. Paul and his friends wondered what kind of war this is. Hour after hour, they kept watch to ensure that no enemy soldier could advance. Suddenly, their position was bombarded with artillery. The enemy launched an artillery strike. Bombs were raining down from the sky. They also took shelter in a spot, but it was shaking violently as if there was an earthquake. Their friend Ludwig, who never imagined war could be like this, became extremely nervous. He even tried to flee, but at that moment, a bomb fell directly on him, tearing his body apart. The next morning, the bodies buried under the rubble were being retrieved. Paul was alive, and it was his good fortune. Because of this, Paul was given another task to collect the identification tags from the dead soldiers. How many soldiers have died must be calculated. Among the dead bodies, Paul found his friends. He found Ludwig's glasses, which was broken and lying in a muddy corner. The dream he had of returning home as a hero was slowly shattering, and Paul could feel this clearly. Time continued to pass. The war has been going on for nearly 3 years. Both sides were dug into the ground, making trenches and holding their positions. A German official named Matthias Berger is very concerned upon learning the number of dead soldiers. This week, as in previous weeks, nearly 40,000 soldiers die, and he knows this needs to be stopped. On the other hand, Paul and Kat are now very good friends. They sneak into a French person's house and steal a duck from the farm. This isn't new. For a long time, they have been stealing ducks from this farm, and the owner shoots at them, but the bullets never hit. After stealing the duck, they make a stew out of it. Everyone sits together, eating and discussing their plans. In the midst of the war, what else could these young soldiers think about? Of course, they think about girls. Some plan to get married, while others plan to spend time with a bunch of girls. Even, Franz goes off to chat with some French girls. Why did I say French? Because the place used to be in France, but the Germans have occupied it. The next day, everyone receives letters from home. They all rush to get their letters. Among them is Kat. Since Kat cannot read, he asks Paul to read his letter for him, curious about what his wife has written. Obviously, his wife shares some loving words in the letter. Currently, Kat's financial situation at home is very poor. Naturally, the country's economic conditions worsen with the war. His wife is worried about when Kat will return home and take care of the family, and these soldiers also thinking the same, when will the war end? They also no longer want to continue fighting. At night, Franz returns with a French girl's scarf. The boys start fighting over who gets to take the scarf and smell it. This behavior is very natural if we think about it, because their lives are completely different from those of ordinary people, and we can see that clearly here. The next day, Paul and his remaining companions are sent on a mission. 60 new soldiers are missing, and no one knows where they have gone. They are searching for them. In a place in the jungle, they see a dead body hanging from a high branch of a tree. They are astonished by thinking about the force of the explosion that could have thrown a body so high. Nevertheless, they have to accept the reality. They continue to search for their missing comrades. At that moment, Albert sees a poster on a wall. He sees a picture of a girl and tears it off to keep it with him. He dreams of dating a girl like that one day. Meanwhile, Paul and the other soldiers continue searching, and arrive at a hall where dead soldiers are scattered everywhere. The bodies lying there are that soldiers they were searching for. The sole cause of their death is poisonous gas. Kat explains that they removed their gas masks too early, which led to their deaths. On the flip side, the German General Friedrich refuses to bow down to France in any way. His soldiers are dying every day. The number of his soldiers has significantly decreased, so he plans to make an agreement to stop the fighting for both sides. When his soldiers return, he will resume the war. This is his plan. However, he is not willing to give up even a meter of the land he has captured. Paul and his companions, who thought they could have a few peaceful days of rest, but they find no such luck. Due to the shortage of soldiers, every healthy soldier in the camp is sent to fight. Now, let me explain this agreement to you. It is called an armistice negotiation. It means that both sides are fighting, and both are suffering losses. Therefore, they agree to a truce or a ceasefire. You might have seen in real life that many countries have border disputes. There is a specific area claimed by two countries, leading to conflict between them. However, they often agree to a ceasefire, meaning both sides hold their positions without firing at each other. Matthias goes to represent Germany. There, he meets with Ferdinand Foch, who is the head of the Allied powers. Now the question is, who are the Allied powers? Many of you might know that in World War I, many countries united against Germany, and together they are called the Allied powers. They are not willing to accept Germany's terms. This means there will be no negotiation. Instead, they have their own agreement. They have given Germany only 72 hours to sign the agreement, otherwise, the war will continue. So, what is their agreement? Simply, Germany must retreat. However, will the German General Friedrich, with his pride and resilience, accept defeat so easily? Absolutely not. He continues his war, regardless of the number of soldiers dying on the battlefield. Paul and his companions are sacrificing their lives on the Western Front. Despite this, they courageously capture a French trench, taking a position from the French. There, Paul experiences a brutal fight there. In reality, the whole war is an experience. They have to forsake all feelings of compassion and mercy. They find some food there and abandoning the battle, they start eating like ravenous beasts. Just imagine how dire their situation was. However, at that moment, the entire place suddenly begins to shake. At first, it seemed like an earthquake, but it was not. It was the French Saint-Chamond tank. It was that cannon, which was a nightmare to the Germans. The tank and flamethrower squads arrive and start killing the German soldiers mercilessly. Albert, that boy who had so many dreams, even tearing off the girl's picture from the poster to keep with him, finds himself trapped on the battlefield. And you can imagine what happened to him. Paul can't find any of his comrades around him. He is very worried about where they have gone. Despite this, he has to escape to save his own life. While trying to escape, Paul gets completely stuck alone in a large crater. There, he encounters a French soldier, and they have a fight. Of course, Paul will try to save his life. He stabs the French soldier multiple times with a knife. He can no longer endure the war, the sound of bombs, and the hellish environment around him. The French soldier lies beside him, taking his last breaths, writhing in pain. Paul can't bear it anymore. He feels so degraded that he goes to help the wounded soldier. However, it is too late. The soldier has a picture of his wife, child, and family, and Paul can feel the whole situation. But this is war. While young soldiers are giving their lives on the battlefield, their generals are living a comfort life. General Friedrich refuses to accept defeat. He states that his father was a hero who participated in 3 wars. Since then, there has been no war. Friedrich also wants to be a hero like his father, which is why he believes a war is necessary to prove himself. The Allied powers have given Germany only 72 hours to sign the agreement. They must sign within those 72 hours. What will they do now? Matthias, the man who was representing Germany, is very mature. He realizes that it is not possible to continue this war. The railway tracks, transportation routes, everything has been destroyed. If the war continues, the soldiers and the people of the country will die of starvation. Meanwhile, Paul has returned to his base camp alive. Many soldiers are nearly half-crazed, while others are rejoicing because a rumor has spread that there might be a ceasefire. Maybe the war will have a break. The soldiers will finally going to go home. Paul meets his friend Jaden. Jaden still has the girl's scarf with him. He tells the scarf gives him a kind of mental strength. However, he gives the scarf to Paul. Jaden is severely injured, and his legs are in bad shape. He can't walk. Now he needs to be fed. So, Paul and Kat manage to find some soup to give to Jaden. Here are some scenes that will truly make you tremble. People's true natures emerge in such dire situations. There's a line for that little bit of soup. Everyone wants to be the first to get it. Naturally, getting food in such circumstances is a matter of luck. Paul brings soup for his injured friend, but Jaden attacks himself with a fork over the plate. The injuries are so severe that saving him is impossible. Jaden commits suicide because his legs are mutilated and he cannot walk. He does not want to return home as a cripple, dependent on others, so he takes his own life. Another soldier was there. He was watching everything from a distance, but he does not come to help. Instead, he starts eating the soup that Paul brought for Jaden, because he also has to survive. Paul is utterly exhausted. After all, the war he imagined is nothing like that, but he saw some hard truths of life on this battlefield. Then comes that historic day, the armistice negotiation and the signing of the agreement. Matthias has no choice. His country's people are starving to death, and he must sign. He agrees to all the terms. The time was 5 a.m. According to the agreement, exactly 6 hours later at 11 a.m., the armistice will take effect. After that, neither side will shoot. But General Friedrich cannot accept this agreement. He feels unsettled without war. However, the soldiers are very happy. Who would be happier than them? Kat is especially thrilled, and it's a peaceful morning. He takes Paul for one last duck-stealing adventure from the French farm. Paul almost gets caught stealing, but they manage to escape. They find this very amusing, and also I do. But does everyone see it this way? Certainly not. The two countries are enemies, and the family at the farm sees the enemy soldiers coming to steal their ducks. They won't see this kindly. And that's what happens. There was a baby boy in that house, and he takes a gun and shoots Kat. Kat is severely injured. They have to travel a long distance as their base camp is far away. Despite their exhaustion and injuries, Paul and Kat must embark on this difficult journey. As they walk along the road, some of their own soldiers' vehicles pass by, but no one offers them a lift. Everyone is celebrating the end of the war, but no one stops to see the injured man lying there. Despite this, Paul carries Kat on his shoulders, struggling to reach the base camp. By the time they arrive, it's too late. The doctor plainly states that the patient has died. His body has black blood, indicating that the bullet pierced his liver. Paul realizes he is completely alone in this battlefield. Every comrade he had is dead. Kat, the person who became Paul's first friend on the battlefield, always motivated him. Despite the hardships and the horrors of war, Kat's presence provided Paul with a sense of camaraderie and strength. Paul is an educated man. He used to read Kat's letters for him. That's why Kat told Paul that when he returns home from the war, he should go to university to complete his graduation. One trauma after another keeps hitting Paul in various ways. The horrors of the battlefield, the loss of comrades, and the constant threat of death have left deep scars on him. Each experience adds to his burden, making it harder for him to cope. The relentless noise of explosions, the sight of fallen soldiers, and the sheer brutality of war weigh heavily on his mind. Meanwhile, General Friedrich gathers everyone together. Every soldier assembles, and they hear what Friedrich has to say. General Friedrich doesn't care about the many soldiers who have died because of him. There are still 15 minutes before the ceasefire takes effect. This means there is still time to attack. He orders his soldiers to show the French who they are in those remaining minutes. But do the soldiers want to do this? Not at all. Many protest against this, and those who do not want to fight are executed on the spot. This means, despite their unwillingness, they have to participate in the battle. Following Friedrich's orders, Paul and the remaining soldiers descend back into the nightmare of the battlefield. On the other side, the French soldiers, who think the war might be over, are in a state of peace. They are bewildered, wondering if the Germans have truly gone mad. In the trenches, a brutal fight breaks out between the soldiers of both sides. This is essentially their final battle. Paul gives his all, but luck is not on his side that day. There was just few seconds left before the ceasefire takes effect. Just then, a French soldier stabs Paul in the back with a bayonet. Immediately the bell rang. That means that the ceasefire has been executed. Now no one can fight. Paul makes his way out of the trench in a wounded state. The surrounding silence is overwhelming, a stillness he hasn't felt in so long. Meanwhile, we see a young German soldier who is still alive. Paul had saved him. Now that the war is over, the young soldier is ordered to collect the identification tags of the dead soldiers. He diligently begins his task and soon finds Paul's lifeless body. Paul is still clutching the scarf he had kept with him throughout the war, and the young soldier takes the scarf from Paul and keeps it for himself. And the story of the film ends right here. This film can undoubtedly be categorized as horror. It's not just about seeing ghosts or being startled by sudden music. Sometimes, the true fear comes from witnessing the raw nature of people and the harsh realities of war. It makes you ponder what people really experienced during that time. The film's presentation, storytelling, acting, and music were all top-notch in my opinion. However, I'm not sure how well I conveyed this through my video. If you have already seen this film, then you already know what I mean. So friends, that's all for today. Please share your opinions in the comments. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye for today. Thank you so much.